Okay, let's unpack this. You know that feeling, right? You're trying to speak English. But before anything actually comes out, your brain's doing this like frantic translation dance.
Oh, yeah. First, in your own language, then pause, search for the words.
The scramble for the grammar, piece it together, and then maybe say it.
But the moment's gone.
Yeah.
The conversation's moved on already.
Exactly. That lag, that whole mental process. It's not just slow, it feels awkward. And yeah, it definitely limits how fluent you sound.
It really does. It's like trying to sing a fast song, but needing to write down the lyrics first. You're always behind.
Totally. So what if you could just skip that whole translation step?
What if your brain just thought in English directly, like a native speaker?
That's exactly what we're digging into today. We've got a bunch of notes, some articles, all focused on this one thing, training your brain to actually think in English.
Right. And our goal here is to explore why getting past that translation habit is so, crucial for real fluency.
And then walk you through some really practical, hands-on techniques from the material stuff you can actually start doing.
Let's dive in. So first big question.
Yeah.
Why is this so important? Why not just get faster at translating?
Yeah, what's the big deal?
Well, what the sources all point to is that relying on translation keeps your brain doing double duty. It has to fire up one language system, get the thought, then switch, decode, rebuild it in English. That cognitive load, it's huge.
Yeah.
And it's the main reason for that delay you feel.
And it's not just speed, though, is it? The notes mention something about, like, awkward phrasing.
Absolutely. Literal translation often sounds really unnatural in English. Think about that classic example from the notes, someone translating, I am cold, from a language where you literally say, I have cold.
Right.
If you just translate word for word, you get, I have cold in English, which just sounds wrong.
Yeah, nobody says that.
Thinking in English helps you absorb and use the natural patterns, the idioms, the way the language actually flows.
Okay, so speed, less brain strain, and sounding more natural. What else? Why else is thinking in English such a focus?
Confidence. That's a huge one highlighted in the material.
Okay.
When the words come more easily because you're not mentally translating, your confidence it shoots up. You feel more in the conversation.
That makes total sense. Less hesitation, you're more likely to actually speak up.
Exactly.
Does it affect other skills like listening?
Definitely. The research suggests that when your internal processing shifts to English, your listening comprehension gets way better.
How so?
Because you're not trying to translate what you hear back into your native language. You're processing it directly as English. It makes following talks, movies, whatever, much easier.
Got it. So you're understanding it on its own terms.
Precisely.
And there's something about pronunciation, too, wasn't there?
Yeah, that was interesting. If you're constantly thinking in English, even silently, you start to internalize the sounds and rhythms of the language more deeply. And that helps you actually produce those sounds more naturally when you speak.
Wow. Okay, so avoiding translation helps with speed, mental effort, sounding natural, confidence, listening, and pronunciation. That's quite a list.
It really makes a strong case for the why.
Before we get to the how, what are the main roadblocks, the things that stop people? The material mentions some common traps.
The biggest one, probably the one we started with, is just being too dependent on translating. If that's your only strategy, your brain never gets forced to build those direct English connections.
It's like always using a calculator for 2 + 2. You never learn to just do it.
Exactly that. It's a crutch, and it stops you developing the actual muscle you need.
What else?
Another big one the articles hit on is overthinking grammar while you're trying to think or speak.
The perfectionism trap.
Right. Trying to build that perfectly grammatical sentence in your head before you even open your mouth just freezes you up.
Native speakers aren't doing that. They're not diagramming sentences internally when they chat.
Not at all. Learning grammar is vital, of course, but the sources are clear. In the moment, you need to focus on getting the idea out. Internal perfectionism is a killer for flow.
Makes sense. What about the emotional side?
Fear. Fear of making mistakes. It's huge.
Yeah, I could see that.
It makes people censor themselves before they even try forming the thought in English. They think, I might mess this up, so they just stop. But the material is really clear. You have to let yourself make mistakes. That's literally how learning works.
Don't let perfect be the enemy of good or even the enemy of just trying.
Exactly. And the last common trap they mentioned.
Let's see. The environment.
Right. Not actively creating an English environment. If English is just, an hour in class or 10 minutes on an app.
Your brain's just going to default back to whatever language it's swimming in the rest of the time.
Precisely. You need to weave English into your daily life somehow. Passive listening, active use at all helps make English feel available to your thoughts.
Right. So the big hurdles, relying too much on translation, getting stuck on perfect grammar, fear of errors, and not enough immersion. Recognizing those is step one.
And the good news, as the sources detail, is there are really practical ways to tackle them.
Okay, this is where it gets really good. How do we actually do it? How do we train our brains? What are the steps?
Okay, step one sounds almost too simple, but it's foundational. Start labeling things around you in English.
Naming objects.
Yep. Consciously look around. Table, chair, laptop, window, tree. The material suggests doing this just randomly walking around your house outside. Okay. And build on it. Don't just say the noun. Describe something about it. The mug is empty. The light is bright. That dog is barking.
Connecting words to your immediate reality. Simple, tangible. Okay, step two.
Talk to yourself.
Okay. Out loud.
Out loud or silently, both work. It might feel a bit weird at first.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it's super effective. Just narrate what you're doing. Okay, I'm making coffee now. Need to send that email. It looks like rain today. There's zero pressure. It's just you practicing the act of forming English thoughts.
And nobody's judging your grammar. Pure, low-stakes practice. Okay. Step three. This one seemed really key in the notes.
The English to English dictionary. Switch to one.
Okay, explain that. Why is that such a big deal?
Because when you hit a word you don't know, your instinct is usually to translate it, right? Find the equivalent in your first language.
Yeah.
An English to English dictionary forces you to stay in English. It defines the new word using other English words you might already know.
So if you look up enormous,
it'll tell you it means very big or huge. Your brain starts building connections within the English language network instead of constantly detouring back to your native language.
That makes so much sense. You're keeping it all in the same system. Okay. Step four.
Start with really simple thoughts and sentences.
Don't try to be Shakespeare right away.
Exactly. Don't try to translate the complex, nuanced thoughts you have in your native language straight off the bat. If you're thinking you need milk, just start with need milk or go buy milk. Keep it super basic.
Right. Not, considering my current inventory, it appears that milk is depleted, necessitating a trip to the store.
Yeah, maybe not that to start. Just the core idea. The complexity will come later, naturally.
Got it. Step five.
Actively work on developing an English inner monologue.
So, paying attention to your internal chatter.
Yeah, become aware of it. When you're planning, thinking randomly, and then consciously try to switch that voice, that internal channel, to English.
Like planning your evening. What should I watch tonight? Maybe that new documentary.
Exactly. Or reflecting on your day. That meeting went okay. Need to call my sister later. It turns passive thinking time into active English practice.
Turning your own head into an English conversation partner.
I
like that. And the sixth main strategy.
Make English a constant presence. We touched on this as a pitfall, but flipping it, it's a key strategy. Immersion.
Right. Surround yourself.
Listen to English podcasts like this one. Watch shows without subtitles in your own language if you can manage. Read articles, books.
The more English you pour in, the more readily available it becomes for your own thoughts to form in English.
Precisely. Your brain gets saturated. It starts to feel more normal, more accessible.
Okay, so labeling and describing, talking to yourself, English-only dictionary, starting simple, nurturing that inner English voice, and immersion. Those seem like the big pillars from the material.
Those are the core techniques, yeah.
So how do we actually make these stick, turn them into habits? Because just knowing them isn't enough, right?
Absolutely not. Consistency is everything for this kind of mental rewiring. The sources really stress integrating small, specific English thinking practices into your daily routine.
Like what?
One idea was to sort of bookend your day with English thoughts.
Bookend, meaning?
First thing when you wake up, maybe even before you're fully awake. Try to think about your plans for the day, just briefly, in English. Okay, Tuesday, shower, coffee, team meeting at 10. Simple stuff.
Okay.
And then at night, winding down, do a quick mental review of the day in English. Finish that report, had pasta for dinner, watched a bit of TV. It primes your brain at the start and reinforces it at the end.
That's neat. Small, manageable chunks. What else?
Another suggestion was setting a timer for a specific no translation zone.
Ooh, like a focused practice session.
Yeah, dedicate maybe 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever works, where you consciously decide not to translate anything mentally. If you're thinking during that time, it has to be in English, even if it feels clumsy or basic.
Setting boundaries for your brain's habits. I like that. And you could combine that with the talking to yourself idea, couldn't you?
Totally. Just narrate what you're doing during that zone. Okay, washing the dishes now, water's warm. Like you said, simpler is often better, especially at first.
The material also mentioned using English thinking during routine tasks, right? Things that don't require a ton of brain power.
Yes. Like when you're cooking, cleaning, commuting, maybe exercising. Instead of letting your mind just wander in your native language, consciously direct it to simple English thoughts or observations.
This train is crowded. Need to chop more onions.
Exactly. Little moments that add up.
And finally, journaling.
Yeah, keeping a simple journal in English. Doesn't have to be long. Just a few sentences each day about whatever your day, your thoughts, feelings. The focus is on getting the idea out in English, not perfect prose. It's like a logbook of your English thoughts.
Okay, so bookend the day, set a no translation timer, talk to yourself during it or during routine tasks, and maybe jot down a few sentences daily. Those are concrete habits.
And you don't have to do all of them at once. Pick one or two that seem doable. The key is just doing it regularly, consistently.
Now, let's be real. This sounds great, but it's not going to be a smooth ride every day. The sources talked about challenges too. What did they highlight?
Well, the main one is just habit. Your brain wants to take the easy path, the familiar language pathway. It's like trying to forge a new trail through thick bushes when there's a paved highway right next to it.
It's a deeply ingrained default setting we're trying to override.
Exactly. And the material really emphasizes patience here. Start super small, like we said, single words, short phrases. And using that English to English dictionary really helps reinforce staying on the English path.
What about when you just get stuck? You don't know the word in English. That must happen all the time.
Constantly. Even for advanced speakers. The trick the sources mentioned is, instead of immediately switching languages to find that one word, try to describe the concept using the English words you do know.
Circumlocution. Like if you can't think of the word screwdriver,
you might think the tool for turning screws, or that metal thing with a handle for screws. The goal is to keep the thought process moving in English, even if you need to get creative or simplify.
Keep the flow going, even if it's not perfect. Okay? And the other big challenge, feeling like you're not getting anywhere. It can feel really slow, can't it?
It absolutely can.
Yeah.
Because it's an internal shift, it's not always obvious day to day. This is where the sources suggest active tracking can be really helpful.
Tracking. How do you track thoughts?
Well, that journal we mentioned is perfect. Or maybe record yourself just talking informally about your day in English once a week.
Okay.
Then, after a month or two, go back and look at the early entries or listen to the first recordings. You'll probably notice improvements, more fluency, better vocabulary that you weren't aware of in the daily grind. Seeing that progress is a huge motivator.
That's a great tip. So when you hit those inevitable bumps, be patient, stick to simple steps, talk around unknown words, and find a way to see your own progress over time.
Exactly. Thinking in English isn't some kind of magic trick. It's a skill, like learning guitar or coding. It just takes consistent, deliberate practice.
This deep dive has really covered a lot. We went from, that initial problem, being stuck in translation mode and why breaking free is so vital,
through the common pitfalls that trip people up,
and landed on these really concrete strategies and daily habits you can actually build.
Yeah, hopefully giving you a clear path forward.
And I think the core message that came through from all the material was, start small. Be patient, especially when it feels awkward. Be consistent, day in, day out. And maybe most importantly, don't let that fear of making mistakes shut you down.
Absolutely. Fluency comes from practice, from communication, not from waiting for perfection. Thinking in English is just a really powerful tool to get you there faster and more naturally.
So as you're listening, what stands out to you from all this? Is there one strategy, maybe one daily exercise that kind of clicks and feels like something you could actually try? Maybe starting tomorrow.
Yeah, just pick one thing.
And think about this. We spend so much time thinking silently, just inside our own heads, right? Imagine the change when that inner voice starts naturally operating in English.
How might that shift things? Not just your language skills, but maybe your confidence. How connected you feel when you interact in English?
It's a pretty profound thought. So yeah, pick one thing. Commit to it for just a week, even. See what happens.
See what ripples it creates.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into training your brain to think in English.
We really hope these insights give you some solid steps you can take on your language journey.